My name is Andres, and welcome to my channel. The second part of the episode 11, we're going to add the feasts and events to the Jewish calendar. Now, we already in the past episode we developed the new moons, a calendar that includes the new moons for the Jewish people, the Jewish priests in the Temple of Jerusalem, and also for the Samaritan and Galilean people living to the north of Judea. They had a different calendar because it was based on a lunar conjunction which defined the new moon, and the priest defined the new moon based on the first sliver of light they could see. And that was a tradition they brought from Babylon. So the entirely black new moon or the lunar conjunction was an older method. So after a lot of effort, we have a calendar where we have the year, the month, and the day of the Julian calendar. We have Julian day, we have the days of the week, and we also have the Jewish months. This will be the fifth month of Av, 29 days. The 6 months, the month of Elul, would be, in this case, 29 days, etc. Now we can start adding additional things to it. But one thing I didn't talk in the last episode was the intercalation of the leap day and the intercalation of the Jewish month. So now we can check for it. You'll notice that we go from year, in this case, we go from year 29, late 29, so we'll really start at 30, to 33. So we had 3 years to check. So we pull our calendar, we start at year 30, we go to, let's do it during the day, February 28, and we see if that's a leap year. Is that a leap year? No, because it goes to March. So 31, is that a leap year? No, it goes to March. Year 32, is that a leap year? Yes, 32 is a leap year. And 33 is not a leap year. So then we can make sure that our calendar on year 32 has a 29-day February, 32 February, and we properly accounted for the intercalated day in the Julian calendar, or leap day. To be able to check the intercalary month on the Jewish calendar, we need to figure out when the spring equinox, also called the vernal equinox, happened. That happened around March 23rd. So we can check on that, March 23rd, vernal equinox. We can do the same thing. We're set up at noon. We go back to year 30. And then we take a look at the sun. And the vernal equinox is when the sun crosses 0 in the ecliptic plane. So every day the sun advances a little bit along the ecliptic. See it a little better. And on year 30, it was on the 23rd. We can check 31 was also 23rd. 32 was it was almost crossing the 33rd, but it's still the 23rd. And 33 is the 23rd. So now we can add the vernal equinox to all the March 23rds in the calendar. March 23rd, it was a Friday. 32, March 23rd, it was a Sunday. And year 33, March 23rd, it was a Monday. Now that we know the vernal equinox, we're told also in prior episodes that the full moon of Nisan, the first month, the full moon of the first month of the year had to be after the vernal equinox. One of the interesting things about the Jewish calendar is that it was a lunar calendar, which on average was 29.5 days. After 12 months, he had only spent 354 days, which was 11 days short of a 365-day year. So every year it was short 11 days. After 3 years, more or less, then you had to intercalate the entire month to bring everything back into alignment. So if you go month by month, and you look at the at the moons, you'll see they start falling backwards. Now, the Jewish wanted to have defined that the Passover, or the full moon, or the first month of the year, on the month of Nisan, ought to be after the spring began, which is after the vernal equinox. So we can go ahead and check and then see if we need an intercalatory month. So we begin in year 30. We have the vernal equinox on the 23rd, and we see the first new moon is a couple days after. That means that the full moon will be around the 14th or so, 34/7 or something. So we go to 34, around 34/6 will be full moon. So our beginning is about right. And then we go 12 months after that. And then we see that the beginning of the year, the new moon, now is behind the vernal equinox by about 10 days. Still okay, because the new moon will be on the 14th. So it'll be around 31/3/27 or so. So it's 31/3/27. You had a full moon. And in this case, the full moon is still after the vernal equinox. So we're still okay. So we go another 12 months. This is Adar. And then this is supposed to be the new beginning of the year, Nisan. But look at how far away. It's 22 days behind the vernal equinox. So the full moon, which happens on the 15th or so here, is several days behind the vernal equinox. So that means a new month needs to be intercalated. So that month, they changed the name to Adar 2. Adar 2 right here. And then the month after that, they call it the beginning of the year, Nisan. So they added a month on 32/4, and now here's the vernal equinox, and the new moon happens on the 14th. So it happens after the vernal equinox. So everything has been reset. So if we look at the things we need to do, we check the intercalation of the leap day, we check the vernal equinox, check the intercalation, and now we can add the date of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. As we know with certainty nowadays that the crucifixion happened on 4/3/33, this day, on this Friday. And you'll notice our calendar is correct, because 3343 happens to be on a Friday. This is the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And you'll notice the resurrection of Jesus Christ happened on what we call Sunday, or before dawn on Sunday. We'll have more to talk about that later. So we go down the checklist. Now we can add the regnal years of Emperor Tiberius. Because of all the work we did with eclipses, we know that the first year of Emperor Tiberius, the 15th year, started on year 29, August 29th. So that's why I started the calendar in July. So August 29th, this was 15th year of Tiberius. And then we can do the rest of the years. August 30 will be the 16th year of Tiberius. Then we go to year 31. This will be the 17th year of Tiberius. 18th. Yeah. Almost made a mistake. In the 19th year of Tiberius is after Jesus Christ died. Now we know with certainty that Jesus Christ died on the 18th year of Tiberius. Some ancient books have 19th year of Tiberius because they were confused about the extra set of consuls on the Roman consuls list. Interestingly enough, we can add the Roman consuls for each one of those years. So if we go to the commonly accepted list of Roman consuls for the first century, we'll see that they're defined by the first set of consuls on the first of the year. So on the first of 29, you have Fufius Geminus and Rubelius Geminus. But the list is incorrect. They shifted to 30. So they are in the first of the year they're shifted to the 30th. And we verified that through eclipses. The first of the year of 30th, 1/1/30. This is when these Roman consuls came on. The next set of consuls on the next year are Longinus and Vinicius. 1/1. The next year is the emperor himself and Sejanus. And on the year of Jesus Christ's crucifixion, we have Scribonianus and Ahenobarbus. And this is important. This was the reason we could figure it all out, because Cassius Dio, the Roman historian, tells us that Ahenobarbus was the only consul that ran his full term. You could identify the consuls Perticus and Vitellius as extra consuls. They never started on the beginning of the year because they were preparing acceleration for the 20th year of Tiberius, which was in September. But they were actually planning to assassinate him when Tiberius arrived to town to the festivities. So they were captured and killed. So they were never consuls at the beginning of the year. So that's what pushed the entire list up. And that's why they're off by 1 year. Interestingly enough, the consul that was Roman consul that reigned in Rome when Pontius Pilatus killed Jesus Christ, he didn't know what was going on. I mean, Pontius Pilatus made the decision within a day or two. Didn't have time to ask permission from the emperor to see if he could execute Jesus Christ. But the fact that Pontius Pilatus had to make the decision and not the Romans, not the Jewish consular elders, they had to ask him to get him killed through a Roman capital punishment, not a Jewish punishment, tells you that Jesus Christ was a Roman citizen. It's plain as day. Now, how did he get that Roman citizenship? That's the interesting point, because to be automatically a Roman, both parents had to be Roman citizens. Leaving Joseph aside, we know that Mary was a Roman citizen, because years later, as we're told in the various records about the life of Mary, the Jewish council of elders wanted to execute her because she was causing trouble by going to the tomb of Jesus Christ and praying. And they were blaming Jesus Christ, her and her family, because of the war that happened in Damascus, where some troops attacked the Herod Antipas troops and defeated them, and that was all because John the Baptist was killed. So the council elders wanted to kill Mary, but Pilatus refused. So it was only after Pilatus was recalled that the new procurator of Judea, the Roman procurator, finally gave his approval. So Mary had to flee to Bethlehem and died, and then the Jewish people burned her house. But because of all that, we know that Mary, Virgin Mary, had Roman citizenship. It's very interesting. I'll probably do a video about it, because you can determine the exact date of her death. Her year of death is all over the place. 5 years after the crucifixion, 10 years, 20 years. She either died at 51 or died at 61, or it's all over the place, and we can determine exactly when it happened because of the description of the sky at the time of her death. Anyway, getting back into the topic, we added the regnal years. We added Roman consuls. Now they add the New Year feast. Now, it's funny. The Jewish people had two separate years. Normally, they would celebrate the beginning of the year in spring, on the month of Nisan. That's basically what they brought back from Babylon. But there was another tradition in which the beginning of the year was in the month of Tishri. And that's probably an older tradition. And on the first of Tishri, which was for them the beginning of the year, they blew trumpets. So it's funny, there were two beginnings of the year. So that would be on Tishri first. On the Temple of Jerusalem, on every Tishri first, blow trumpets. So we go to the next one. First of Nisan, New Year's feast. You go to Tishri, we say blow trumpets. Here's the New Year feast during the day. Here we blow trumpets. This is the New Year's feast. Here we blow trumpets. And that's it. Now that we add the Passover. This is really interesting. The Passover feast happened on the evening on the 14th. And so it's actually on the 15th because the new day had already started. And it also marks the beginning of the week of unleavened bread. Now, there's some days that are called holy or holy convocation, in which you're not supposed to work, you're supposed to celebrate as a holiday. And some other days are called the Sabbath, which is also a holiday. And I used to think that they were essentially the same, but they're not. The Sabbath has additional restrictions. And one of the most important ones is you can't execute somebody on the Sabbath, because the Sabbath was a holy day to the Lord. And you can leave a bloody body on the ground. That's why Jesus Christ was taken off the cross before the day ended. They couldn't have a dead body, neither him nor the two thieves, unburied before Saturday. And I thought maybe the restriction happened, also held for the Holy Convocation days, but it was not. As we see in episode 12, the next episode, they were about to kill the adulterous woman, and they were about to kill Jesus Christ on a Holy Convocation day. So to keep them separate, I'm going to paint them different colors on the calendar. It's useful to know that it was a day in which you didn't work and you prayed. But it's also even more useful to know for the life of Jesus Christ on which day he could not be killed. And for that reason, Jesus Christ went to Galilee on Saturdays. He arrived there right before sunset. He stayed there the whole day, and right after sunset, at the end of Saturday, he would get in his boat and leave. And while he was there on Saturday, nobody could do anything. They couldn't grab him, they couldn't arrest him, they couldn't execute him. So he was almost like a hit-and-run priest. And we'll see that in the next episode. So, we're told in Exodus there were 3 times a year they should keep a feast. And during those 3 times of the year, the priest, or every priest in Jerusalem, was supposed to go to the temple. But only on those days. The rest of the days, the priest could be somewhere else. You had the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And it's a 7-day feast. Then you had the Feast of the Harvest and the Feast of the Ingathering at the end of the year. Now, the Feast of Passover was a 7-day feast. In Exodus tells us until the 14th of the same month, and shall kill the or sacrifice the lambs in the evening. Now, the reason Jesus Christ called the Lamb of the God, and he took our sins, he was a sacrifice for our sins, is because he died on the 9th hour, at the same hour in which they sacrificed the lambs to get ready for Passover. They had to kill the lambs before the evening and cook it before the evening, because you couldn't have any fires going on the Sabbath. That's one of the restrictions. So you kill them at 3 in the afternoon, you prepare them, and at 6, when the sun went down, more or less, then you could eat. And for that reason, Jesus Christ was likened to a sacrificial lamb. The first day should be a holy convocation, and the 7th day should be a holy convocation. And it lasts until the 21st day at evening. So, simple enough. That seems pretty clear. No confusion there. The Pentecost will be more difficult, so I'll probably leave it for another episode. So, we need to find the month of Nisan. We go to the 14th, which is the day of preparation. That's when you prepare the meat and everything. And then in the afternoon, on the 14th, that's when you eat. And the first day, leavened bread, is on the 15th, and the last day is here. So we'll make these blue for a holy convocation where you don't work. But notice that this day was also Saturday. So you can't kill anybody on this day. Not because it was a holy convocation day, but because it was Saturday. And then let's call this, make it some other color. Looks better. Okay, so that was on year 30, on year 31st. And since these feasts were celebrated at the temple and people went to the temple, we're showing here the celebrations on the Jewish calendar. Shabbat, Adar, Nisan. Nisan 14th. Paste. Okay. Then we go to year 32. You don't work on those 2 days. Those are holidays. And this is the feast. Now notice, even though it's a feast, you still have to work. It was just that every day you would eat. There were some dietary restrictions. You couldn't eat normal bread. You had to eat unleavened bread. So Jesus Christ died on the preparation day. This was the first day of unleavened bread, and the 21st, last day of. And for Christians, this is important because the way the Galilean and the Jewish calendars were staggered. You see here the Galilean month started the day before. So that means that the first day of unleavened bread happened the day before. And that's why he celebrated the Passover on the 14th. Which means that when Jesus Christ gave wine and said, drink this is my blood, do this in remembrance of me, and eat this bread, is my body, that bread was unleavened bread. So now we know that the Eucharist celebrated by the church ought to be wafers of unleavened bread because of that. And that's it. Simple enough. So let's keep going down the line. We added the Passover feast. We added unleavened bread. Now we need to add the Day of Atonement. The Day of Atonement is important. Because the day is the only day in the Jewish calendar at the time in which you fasted the whole day. Nowadays, I think there are two. One of them fasting because of the loss of the Temple of Jerusalem, but that happened years after Jesus Christ died. So at the time, that was the only day in which you fasted the whole day. The other important thing of the Day of Atonement is that every day the priests were there. They would light up a little incense or something in the morning, and I think they'll light it up in the afternoon or something like that. So there was the everyday incense lighting. But on the Holy of Holies, the segregated holy section of the temple that was behind a curtain, and only the high priest could enter, and he could only enter it once a year. You light up the incense only on that day, once a year. And that was on the Day of Atonement. And that's important because that's the clue that led me to identify, and later I found some documents that corroborated this, that when Luke tells us that the priest Zacharias went on the temple at the time of incense, that means that he went on the temple on the Day of Atonement. Otherwise, it could be any day. There were multitudes gathered outside, so it was a holiday. And from that, we can figure out when Jesus Christ was born. So the Day of Atonement is important, even though we'll have to reconstruct the entire calendar for years 0, which is 1 BC, to 3 or 6 or something like that, to get the events around Jesus Christ's birth. We'll have to do this all over again. So this is good practice. So let's do the Day of Atonement, which was also a holy day, or a holy congregation day. So that was in the month of Tishri, 10th of Tishri, 10th Day of Atonement. This is a holy convocation day. Let's make it blue. Tishri, the 10th of Tishri. You have the Day of Atonement. And this is also a very important day. The Talmud tells us how the priests used to prepare for the Day of Atonement. And I'll make another video on this. And it was so important that the high priest and his household, or the high priest that had a household, light up the incense for God on that one day, that in case anything happened to the priest, like he was sick that day or something happened to the priest, they prepared for a week in advance. They were training a different person to act as a substitute. Not only were they training a different person to act as a substitute, they had a wife, a lady, prepared to marry him immediately. to make sure that on that very important day, the high priest was married, and in case he couldn't make it, that a second person could take his place. In some other traditions, they even had a rope tied around him, so in case he had a heart attack or something while he was inside the Holy Holies, they could drag him out without other people going into the Holy Holies. And this is very important. Very important. As I'll show in another video, we can identify Zacharias as the priest, as the high priest that was chosen after Simon the Boethutian was deposed, as Josephus tells us. Now, as we know, Zacharias had a wife called Elizabeth. She had, in her late age, she had John the Baptist. Some Coptic documents about the life of Mary, Virgin Mary, tells us that Elizabeth died that year, probably from birth complications. So Zacharias had to immediately marry another woman to replace Elizabeth that died. And she would have been a 14-year-old girl, just fresh out of the temple. So Josephus tells us he names him Matthias ben Theophilus, basically Matthias, the son of Eleazar, Theophilus being the equivalent with Eleazar. He tells us that the night before the Day of Atonement, he had a wet dream. He basically ejaculated in bed and went. I couldn't believe it at the time. I was saying, well, if that was Zacharias, he must have been like 90 years old. Well, how could that be? Well, you have a 90-some-year-old sleeping with a 14-year-old girl, and not having sex, but daily being around her. He had a wet dream. And as a result, they had to get the replacement priest for one day. And that one day was the Day of Atonement. And the replacement was his kin or relative, Joseph Ben Elimus. No, Joseph Elimus. Now, Elimus means, the us means of. So, Joseph, the son of Elim. And we can recognize him as the father of Jesus Christ. The father of Jesus Christ was high priest for one day. Isn't that incredible? In that same day, there was an uprising. Several priests went ahead and climbed the gates of the temple. They tore down a golden eagle that was there. They chopped it up. Soldiers came in. There was a huge multitude revolting. And it was on that day that the angel came to Joseph and told him, hey, you better get out of here and leave and go to Egypt. And a few days later, the soldiers killed Zacharias. So the Day of Atonement is an important day. But that happened all, when Jesus Christ was only 1 year old. But I thought it was a cute reference. So let's do the next Day of Atonement, 10th of Tishri. So we have the Day of Atonement, Day of Atonement. So in other words, Joseph was no simple carpenter. He was a highly regarded priest. And we know that because his son, James, was a Kohen priest, a member of the elite of the priests. And he could only be, as Epiphanius tells us, and he could only be a priest if his father was a priest. And that means that Jesus Christ is a priest. And that's why he had access to the temple. He belonged to the elite of the priestly class of Jerusalem. And the 10th of Fresh. We're almost done. So we've done the Day of Atonement. Yeah, Numbers tells us the Day of Atonement is a holy convocation day. Feast of Tabernacles is a 7-day feast, and the day after the feast is a holy convocation. Note, this is important for the next episode. When the feast ends, it's on the 7th day of the feast, and the day after the feast ends is a holy convocation. That's why Jesus Christ was in the temple and he saw the adulterous woman. And also that's the day in which they tried to kill him. They were about to kill her, and they were about to kill him. So the 15th day of the 7th month. So that's right after Tishri. First day is a holy convocation, and the 8th day shall be a holy convocation. For 7 days you shall make an offering by fire unto the Lord. So that's the difference. The 7 days you're making a special sacrifice. So we come over here, we go back into Tishri, we have the 15th day, first of Tabernacles. In fact, on the Day of Atonement in year 2 AD, Joseph fled for Egypt after being the priest that morning and seeing the revolt at the temple. And being the high priest, Zacharias had to come back for the Feast of Tabernacles. And he had to show up at the temple. So he wasn't there. He excused himself saying, I had a wet dream. So he came back on the first, he had to come back on the Feast of Tabernacles. And that's when the Roman soldiers caught him and killed him. And that's why there's a difference in the name. Jesus Christ renamed John the Baptist as Elias, from the prophet Elias. And because of the manner of his death, he renamed that high priest, he renamed him Zacharias. Because Zacharias was a prior high priest in the Old Testament, which had been killed on the steps of the altar. He was killed on the step of the altars. His blood was still there. They never found the body. And because of that, Jesus Christ renamed him Zacharias in honor of the prior priests. And we lost his name forever. But now when you know his name, because of the writings of Josephus, he was Mattathias, the son of Mattathias Theophilus. Mattathias, the son of Theophilo, which means lower God, which I equate to Mattathias, the son of Eleazar, which was one of the relatives of Joseph. So he was killed on this day on the year 2 AD. So this is 8th day. That's a holy convocation day. These days, you're supposed to do a fire sacrifice. Now, holy convocation days are important to know because those are the days where the workers were free. They didn't have to work on the 15th. They didn't have to work on the 21st. So when you read the Bible and says, a whole multitude came by and they went to the river and they were baptized or something. It happens several times in the Bible. It has to have been done either on the Sabbath or on the Holy Convocation Day when they were not working. The only exception to that will be year 29, which was the year of the Jubilee, as I'll show in one of the episodes. In that case, about a third of the population, or 20% of the entire population in Israel, Judea, was unemployed for the whole year because they couldn't work for the fields. That's a whole topic right there, and that's why they were so angry at the Romans when they taxed them on that year. It created a revolt. Anyway, let's finish this history. Go to the 15th, space, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oops. I got it wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Oh, crap. Okay. I got that wrong. That's why you have to check and double check everything you do. Okay, Feast of Tabernacles, 15th, 21st. The 8th day is the 22nd. Feast of Day Preparation, 15, 20 to the 21st. Okie dokie. And then we add Hanukkah. Now, Hanukkah celebrates when the Maccabees finally kicked out the Greeks, the Seleucid Empire, out of the temple and managed to sign a peace agreement, and were able to restore the temple in that year. This is important because from that clue and other clues, we'll be able to determine the sabbatical years of the Jews. They had a sabbatical year every 7th year, and they had a jubilee every 49 years. So we'll have to look at that in some other episode. But the Hanukkah didn't have any holy days because it came long after. It wasn't declared by God at all. It was something they wanted to celebrate. Hanukkah, 8-day celebration starting on the 25th of Kislev. 8 nights for 8 nights and days. So, 25th of Kislev, right? It's basically our December celebrations. So, starting on the 25th, 8 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, first of Hanukkah, last of Hanukkah. And these are celebratory days on December. I see it's important to know because the first of Hanukkah was when Jesus Christ came, as John tells us, into the temple and saw the old widow making a donation to the treasury, and rich people were not doing that or something like that. So this will define the date in which that happened. So in that sense, it's important. I should get a better color convention. Anyway, let's go to the next Kislev. In fact, since Jesus Christ only went to the temple when he couldn't be arrested, more than likely he went during the Hanukkah celebrations. He went there on a Saturday. So that even within those 8 days even defines the specific day that it happened. Go to the next Kislev. And the last one. Now I'm showing this step by step so you can do it yourself. As I said, for any year of interest that you want to find out, I don't know, the fall of Jerusalem, the conception of Virgin Mary, the death of Joseph, the death of Mary, the life of Jesus Christ, you have to recreate a calendar. It's not that difficult. It's just a little tedious. And that's it. So we come to the conclusion of part 2 of episode 11. In the next episode, we'll see how it can be used to determine the exact date, in fact, exact within a few minutes, when one of the miracles of Jesus Christ happened. Thank you, and please like and subscribe if you find this useful. This is just the beginning. I mean, there's so much to talk about and so many dates to determine. But we'll use the calendar as our guideline. Episode 13, I think, is going to be about the Sabbath, basically Saturdays, and how you can't travel and you can't kill anybody. Those are two very important things, and that will help us define and put in place the comings and goings of Jesus Christ. Thank you. I recognize that these videos are slow and tedious, and that's because I want you to be able to do it on your own. Don't take my word for it. Question everything, and create your own calendar. At least try one. You won't really understand what's going on unless you try one, at least. My goal is to educate and not really to entertain. But please like and subscribe. That'll really help me. And I'll continue to do additional videos. Thank you.